This is Evolutionary Radio. This is your host, Trevor Kouritzin. As always, we have my co-host, Steve Smith, joining me.
Hey, good evening, guys. What's up? What's going on?
We got a really cool guest joining us today. We have a vegan pro bodybuilder. Joining us today is IFBB pro Torre Washington. Welcome to the show.
Man, thank you so very much. I'm actually very intrigued to be a part of this podcast. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to have me on here. So thank you very much.
The first thing I got to say, Torre, is that is the coolest hair I have ever seen in my life. How long did it take you to grow that? Guys, he's got dreadlocks down to, like, how far down do they go? To, like, your hips?
Yeah, they go past my hips. I've had my locks. You know, everybody's locks grow differently, and my hair grows very slow. And so I have been growing it for about 22 years right now.
So what's the story behind that? You just too cheap to get a haircut?
No, honestly, you know, it is a saver when it comes to that. But I started my locks when I went more into the Rastafarian lifestyle. You know, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, all those type of the Rastas. And because of my Jamaican heritage, I was introduced to it, and I adapted it because it was more of a non-conformity type of lifestyle. And the locks are part of it. Not necessarily saying you have to have locks, but it was just, you know, and it was cool. You know, it was cool to start locks, and next thing you know, it grew into more of my lifestyle.
They don't have Jamaicans, very many Jamaicans where Trevor lives, but where I live, there's quite a few of them. Were you born in Jamaica?
My family's Jamaican. I was born in the States.
Okay.
I was born in the States, but I lived in Jamaica, and then I lived there, went to school, came back to the States, and so I've been in the States ever since.
Yeah, I've been in Jamaica many times. It's a really beautiful country, and the food is fantastic. So where are you living now, Torre?
I'm living currently in South Florida.
Okay.
Broward County, specifically. You know, you have Miami-Dade County, and then you have Broward County. So I'm about 35, 40 minutes.
I'm the next county up, so I'm right next to you as well.
Where are you?
Palm Beach County.
Dude, I go to Palm Beach all the time.
Yeah, I know. You're going to where Trevor's going in Winnipeg, and you come to where I am all the time.
Well, Torre, tell us about that. Because before we started recording, you basically said, like, hey, Trev, where do you live? And I said, I live in Winnipeg. And we had some crazy news.
So what's crazy, you being in Winnipeg is the irony of that is I got invited to speak at a Winnipeg Veg Festival, which I'm not sure which annual, if this is their second, first, or whatever, but I'm speaking there on the 15th of September as the keynote speaker, and I'll be up there from the 13th through the 16th in Winnipeg, Canada, which is just ironic, man. So that's actually pretty cool.
Well, we'll definitely get a workout in. You seem like a really cool guy. Before we started recording, Torre was like, what's going on with your co-host? It looks like he's in a gun range. Steve, tell our listeners about your...
we got a lot of people have been asking this. First of all, most of you guys are listening to the audio version, but we recently started doing video. But the reason I wear these glasses, guys, is because I don't believe in electronics after sunset, because that fucks with your melatonin levels, that fucks with your sleep. So these glasses actually block the blue light from lights and electronics especially. So those of you who work late, like Trevor and I do, because we do this podcast in the evenings, these are a must because they will help you fall asleep. So when I finish this podcast, I unwind, I take them off, go to bed, I'm out like a rock. So
really?
Yeah, these block that blue light, so my melatonin levels don't get messed with. So this is a must for anybody who works. And they look like shit, I get it, but if you guys want to buy nice ones, they're gonna cost you about $120. These were off Amazon for like $8. So I'm a cheap guy, you know. I'm not a materialistic guy, so that's why I wear these guys. I'm not in a gun range. I'm not. So that's why I wear them. It's pretty good.
You're not about to do lawn work.
No, exactly. Yep.
So Torre, tell us a little bit about veganism. So it seems like everyone now is going vegan. You know, it's kind of like this major movement. You've been doing this for, I think, 2 decades, correct? What made you decide to go vegan?
So, interestingly enough, do you know, or you have any idea of what a Seventh-day Adventist is?
Enlighten me.
Okay, Seventh-day Adventist is a religious practice. It's a Christian-based religion, and their basic stance is they worship on Saturdays, not Sundays. And so Saturday they consider the seventh day of the week, and that's the day supposedly the Lord rested and what have you. So that's the day they worship. Now they also have a health message, and in this health message, they preach that we should be vegetarian or vegan, basically eating of the land like we would if we were in the Garden of Eden, eating of every herb-giving fruit and the trees, of course. Just kind of breaking it down very quickly. So my mom raised us in that lifestyle, and so in that lifestyle we were vegetarian, meaning that we still had maybe cheese or eggs if it was part of a byproduct in a product. We still ate that. We didn't really admonish cheese or admonish eggs in the actual making of a certain food. So I did that, raised that way, lived in Jamaica, came back from Jamaica, lived in the US, and in 1998 I was, still part of the Rasta. I started to be a part of the Rastafarian lifestyle, and that came after my introduction to Seventh-day Adventists. And then the Rasta lifestyle, the Rasta is kind of similar. It's a Christian-based lifestyle, not more of a religion. And they go into Aital. Aital is sort of like natural. Mostly Rastas like to put I in front of things because I talks about being one with ourself and the Most High. So Aital nutrition is more like a vegan style of eating. But I found out that a lot of Rastas really, really weren't all Aital. They would still eat fish and chicken, what have you. And to me being part of something, I didn't want to be part of something and be a hypocrite and say I'm a Rasta, but still having these different byproducts in my food. So in 1998, I just cut it out, and I made sure to check my food and what I ate. And I didn't know at the time that was vegan. It's not until later on in my journey that someone said to me, "Hey, what do you eat?" And I told them. They said, "Oh, you're vegan." And I said, "What is vegan?" I had to pretty much teach myself what vegan actually meant. And it goes so much more than just what you eat. It all down even to what you wear, what you do outside of different things, how you live and what have you. So it was just me continuing to learn.
So were you bodybuilding at this time?
So I started bodybuilding, to be honest with you, Trevor, like when I was very young, like around 15. And that happened because I was quote unquote bullied when I left the States and I moved to Jamaica. Think about a kid born in Alabama, moved to Jamaica with this country Southern accent. I got picked on a lot because the kids didn't understand me. And so even me and my brother, so we both kind of stuck together. And when I left Jamaica, I moved to the States. And so again, here I am with a different accent now. Now I sound more from the Caribbean. I sound Jamaican. And now kids are picking on me in middle school, like, "Yo, man, go back on your banana boat, man," stuff like that. And I kind of internalize it instead of acting out on it. And I started lifting weights because I wanted to emulate superheroes. I wanted to be like Superman. I wanted to be like Wolverine. And so my mom bought me one dumbbell, and I eventually got a bench, and I used this one dumbbell and started working out. And then high school, later on in middle school, I finally got a membership at Gold's Gym, and I just started working out, reading every magazine. I read up on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I learned about bodybuilding in order to build that physique that these superheroes had. And that's where it started. I said, "Oh, okay, this is how I can build that physique. I just got to lift heavy things against gravity."
So Torre, my question then is, so like when you buy this bodybuilding magazine, you buy a Muscular Development or a Flex or whatever,
right?
You basically, so you see that, Jay Cutler or Ronnie Coleman on the cover. Then you go to see what his diet is, and the diet was egg whites for breakfast, chicken for meal 2, chicken for meal 3, beef for meal 4. What made you stay a vegan? Why didn't you go, "Hey, I want to look like Jay Cutler. Okay, I'm going to follow his workout program. I'm going to follow his diet"?
So interesting. So when I moved to Jamaica, I'm going to kind of regress to kind of give you a premise of how I got to where I am. When I moved to Jamaica, remember, I was vegetarian. My mom's told my grandparents they're vegetarian. We're going to live. We lived with our grandparents for a little while. For about 3 years, we lived with our grandparents in Jamaica. And during that time, they didn't know anything about vegetarian. So they fed us meat. So I was introduced to meat earlier on in my life. And during that time, the only thing we had never eaten was pork. And so when I moved back to the States, I still ate that way. I still ate eggs. I ate tuna because, like you said, I saw this in the magazines. But then when I really started to go into actual competition, I didn't compete until 2009. So I was training in 1998. I went vegan. I actually gave up bodybuilding, like as far as competing or looking to compete. I just started college. So I went into college, I did engineering. I got my engineering degree. And after I graduated, I started working in the engineering field. And in 2008, a friend of mine competed. And when I saw him on stage, Trevor, it set me back to my superhero days. I said, shoot, look at this dude. He looks like Superman. And I decided at that point, okay, I want to go at this again. And my friend was like, you're vegan. I was like, so? I didn't think it mattered. And so I just went on, and we did our first show in 2009.
Dude, when you come to Winnipeg, we're going to be best buddies. I'm a chemical engineer.
I'm a mechanical engineer.
Okay, get out. We'll wear our dorky pinky rings to the gym together. So my question for you, Torre, and I mean, like, we got tons of listener DMs, and the number one question when it comes to bodybuilding as a vegan is protein.
Right.
How do you get enough protein?
So to think about from that time, 1998, I just straight ate vegan. I never tracked protein, didn't track fat, didn't track carbohydrates. I ate, worked out, drank water, worked out. Didn't take any supplements. I wasn't into the supplement thing. I wasn't into any of that because to me, I was just like, I didn't need all that stuff to go into my body. I got very about, my organs are more important than taking some creatine or what have you. And so I started competing in 2008. No supplements, no BCAAs, no tracking of anything. I just basically follow what my friend told me, hey, just make sure you get enough of this and enough of that. Don't eat too much carbs. And I was like, all right. But as I started to learn more scientifically about my body, I could eat carbs and still get lean. Just and increase my water. I just kind of learned those things kind of trial and error. But I didn't do any protein tracking until, honestly, the last 6 months. The last 6 months because I hired an outside person to kind of look at me to see, okay, what can I do? Because, you get to a point where you can only see so much because you get very critical of yourself. When an outside person with a good set of eyes can determine what needs to change on you and how we can make you look better. So with his help, he told me a certain amount of protein. And so since he said a certain amount of protein, I had to track that because I wanted to meet what he said in order to give what he said everything, give it my all versus going against what his requirements were. So he gave me a certain requirement for protein. How I did it was mainly tofu, beans, seitan, tempeh, greens, of course, carbs, and I added in protein shakes for the first time for a consistent basis. Only because my protein requirement was so high. But prior to that, Trevor, I didn't take any protein shakes. My protein intake was roughly 50 grams to 100 grams up till last year, basically. Up till last year, I didn't track it. But when I did guess it and kind of just looked at it, that's what it was. It's about 50 to 100 grams. And that is very doable without any supplementation.
Did you notice a difference now that you are supposedly consuming more protein or no? Because I'm curious who this guy was. Is he like a diet coach? Is he?
He's I don't know if you want me to say his name?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's the coach. He's the coach out there now. His name is Cliff Wilson.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
after you start, like, what made him give you that advice? Was he, did he say, like, oh, you need to track your protein or you're not going to build muscle? Or was he like,
well, I
you know,
think his mainly, if you most of the coaches that are scientifically based coaches, they roughly go off of a certain amount of protein requirement based on the body weight, lean body mass. And so his requirement was roughly based off of that. And it was suggested to do that in order to maintain a certain amount of muscle mass as you diet, as you deficit, create that deficit. And
mhm.
so the goal is to increase your protein intake to keep as much muscle mass as possible so you can limit the amount of loss throughout that process. As
And has
far
it
as
made,
I would
yeah.
say, Steve, I did notice that I did maintain more muscle mass.
Mhm.
If I look at certain pictures, I get lean very easily, but I also tend to lose some muscle mass with that. And the main critique that I would get from judges was your body looks sick if you could just be a little bigger. And bigger is relative because I don't know if they meant bigger as in weight or more muscle belly or more full muscle bellies. You know what I mean? Because I'm a hard gainer as far as weight as well. I can gain weight, but then I lose it very quickly the minute I start to really lock in activity.
So what's your height and weight right now?
Right
Because
now,
we're looking, guys, you can go on his Instagram page and look at what he looks like. And he's ripped. I mean, he's got the body, you know, the beach body, everything most people would kill for. So what are your stats that we're seeing if we go on your page?
I'm right now 5'7", 170 pounds. I usually compete about 160, 162. If I'm super shredded to where it's like my skin is like they said it's like I look like wood, like you break dry wood and then you see all the fibers. I'm about 157.
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of muscle mass on your frame because your body fat can't be very much.
Right.
Your body fat's probably like 5%.
Yeah.
So you're holding a ton of muscle. So, I mean, obviously the whole vegan thing is working for you. Nobody can argue. Like I don't want to hear people come on and say, oh, you can't build muscle if you're a vegan. Well, your evidence that that's 100% false because you've got a lot of muscle mass. You know, like there's guys that are your height who are 180 pounds and they look like shit. They're like 18% body fat. You've got more muscle mass than them, and they're eating 300 grams of protein a day.
Right. Right.
So Torre, I gotta be the one asking the question everyone's thinking about. So I mean, you became an IFBB pro, eating only about 50 to 100 grams of protein. Were steroids a part of that?
No. So, correction on that. I competed during the time frame for that IFBB pro card without a coach. And then this last run at it, I hired a coach. And the coach increased the protein intake based on just scientific data. And not necessarily because I'm a vegan, but just on the general, when you're working with anybody who's a competitor, you have a certain protein requirement based on how much muscle they want to lose or gain or keep. And so he increased my protein to about 175 at the most. And that was a lot. I mean, that was a lot for me because I never really had to get that much. I didn't track that. I would really just portion my food. So if I ate, say, 5-6 donuts in a week, I would bring it down to 2 because I wanted to limit the amount of my calories were going to go down. So I wanted to keep more nutrient-dense food in my diet versus donuts. And so that's what caused me to do that. Now, as far as the 50 to 100 grams, that was prior to this last 2018 competition year. And so without steroids, I mean, honestly, Trevor, I wouldn't know how to even start taking them. I didn't realize that there were so many different types of things available. Like you have your DECA, your Tren, your Clan. I don't know what. I remember when I was in Mexico and I ran into this guy who worked out. He was in his 40s. He said to me, "Man, you look like you work out. So where do you get your drugs?" I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" he said, I know you got to take Winstrol or something like that. I was like, no, I don't even know what that is. He said, because I got some bad Winnie, and it just caused me to have this and that. I don't even want to go through that, man. I'm like, what? So I'm almost every opportunity when people say that they consider that I had to use something, it's a compliment, because to me, I've worked so hard for it, and you automatically think that I just cheated the system just to build muscle. Hey, man, that's kudos to me. Hey, I can show you how to do it too. You know, so I welcome those questions but unfortunately, Trevor, there's a lot of people that use it and don't say they use it. So it causes anyone who said that they don't and they look like they do, people automatically say, yeah, right.
For the record, I believe you just because you come off as a really honest guy. And then also, you're not a big guy. You're just ripped, right? So that's the thing is, like, if you want to become a 300-pound monster, you're going to need to take drugs.
Right.
But you're not a big guy. You're just so shredded that you look big because your muscles are so pronounced. But I mean, like, I'm sure when I pick you up at the airport when you're in Winnipeg, with clothes on, you're just going to look like an average guy. You know, you're probably going to look like a soccer player. But it's only once you're in the gym working on a tank top, people are going to be like, holy shit, bro, where you get your Winnie?
And I get that. I mean, just the other day, somebody asked me that in the gym. He said, dude, you look like you're flexing and you're not flexing. You're just walking around the gym. I was like, all right, I appreciate it. He's like, did you take anything, man? I said, no, man, I don't. And it feels good that people look at you like that, but it's kind of sad when they still don't believe it. But like you said, you understand body physique, so you can see that, nah, this guy just he's very defined, and so his muscles stand out, but he's not a huge guy.
Well, I prep people for a living as well. So, I mean, like, I have a lot of natural guys who, in photos, they look freaking crazy. You know, they look like the second coming of Ronnie Coleman. But in person, they're just a little dude. It's all an illusion.
You know, and that's what helped me, too, when I started to see people, and then you see them in person, you're like, oh. Because even for me, it's kind of, I want them, when they see me in person, I don't want someone to be like, oh, he's little. You know, you want them to be like, oh, he still looks good. So it's good when people still say, oh, man, you look better in person, or they say, man, you look pretty good, you know, versus, oh, you're tiny. The person that'll say that is usually that 300-pound guy who sees you after someone says, hey, check this guy out. He looks good and he's vegan. Like, oh, okay. But then they see me in person, they're like, well, he's not that big. You know, that's the person that always will come around saying that.
So, Torre, you know, I want to get into some of these questions here because a lot of our listeners, you know, aren't vegans, and a lot of them are very misled. And I think a lot of that has to do with diet coaches, because diet coaches, most of them don't know the difference between a screen porch and screen pass, and they don't know their ass from their mouth.
Right.
So they give advice, and they always tell people that you need, like, you know, 4 times your body weight in protein a day, or you're not going to build muscle. And it's not true, because, you know, I don't consume that much protein. And when I did consume more protein, all it did was make my stomach feel like shit, right. You know, and I just got fat off of it. So, you know, and in America, you know, we eat meat, you know, 4 times a day, 5 times a day, people are eating meat. And they look like shit. We're an obese society. We have diabetes. And, you know, if I talk to a diet coach and I tell them this, they always say, oh, no, vegans aren't in great shape. Vegans are fat. Vegans are, and I'm like, wait a minute, vegans are fat? Vegans are all little. They're all lean. You know, like, what the fuck are you smoking? Like, every vegan I know is skinny. So obviously it makes you skinny, but they still argue with it. Is that your experience too? Or am I just, you know, out of my mind on that?
Well, you know, I think because when people meet me in person and they are able to see me and see the visual presence that I have when they see me, they're automatically more not entertained. They're more interested in wanting to know, okay, how did you do that? Because the idea is that you're going to go vegan, you're going to lose your mass, you are going to, again, get skinny. And then there's those that say that your muscles will be soft because you won't have the amino acid profile in order to build muscle. So I tend to run into that more. I don't run into the, you need to eat so much more of this or so much more of that. Because when people see me and then I tell them what my experience is, they're almost intrigued to find out, okay, how can I do that too? Because I ran into a lot of this when I was backstage competing and guys found out that I was vegan. They would ask me, dude, okay, how can I do that? Because I actually get tired of eating so much chicken and whatever at the end of my prep, because it's just the same thing over and over again. Whereas me, I'm not eating the same thing. I'm switching things. I'm doing different things because I can eat from a variety of sources just to get nutrients in. So,
what are the myths when it comes to being a vegan that a lot of meatheads out there that you may run into believe that are kind of that need to be debunked that you feel?
One of the myths is that you're not going to be able to get shredded, or all you can get is shredded and you can't put on size. You're not going to be as strong. Your testosterone level drops. All of this, I get a lot of those myths that you hear about. And now, mind you, I hear these mainly from people who I know personally when they tell someone else they're going vegan. Because when people talk to me, everything that they thought about is debunked because they meet me. And then also when they find out how long I've been vegan. Because, of course, you can see that person who's been training eating meat most of their life, and then a year now they've been vegan. People say, well, that wasn't built on an all vegan lifestyle. It was mainly just maintained. Where, as for me, I didn't start competing until 2009, but for the majority of my life, I was vegan, or mainly vegetarian vegan. So my muscle and my maturity that was built was all built on a plant-based diet.
Would you say my theory, which is something that 99% people disagree with, is that weight training and resistance training is what builds muscle, not food?
Yes.
Because a lot of people think that if they just eat steak 10 times a day, they're going to magically build muscle. And I explain to them, you cannot just eat steak 10 times a day and build muscle. You have to resistance and weight train. That's what builds muscle. And then sleep. And that's the thing I've learned, throughout my life. But diet coaches don't agree with that. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because, we all still are on an archaic old dogma of you need to eat meat and potatoes in order to build muscle. And it's sort of like we go back into the caveman days. Hold on a second, Trevor. Can I plug my computer in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
One question I want to ask Torre when he comes back is, it seems like veganism is the biggest fad now. It seems like everyone is going vegan. I want to see
everything's a fad to you, Trevor.
No, but for real, dude, you're not on Instagram.
What does that mean? What does a fad mean? What does that mean in your view, a fad?
It means in the last 2 years, everyone is deciding to go vegan.
I don't know. I don't see that, bro.
Dude, if you go on Instagram, every second hashtag is vegan. See, Torre's backing me up here. What I was going to say, Torre, is...
No, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just not sure. I think people like me are sick of seeing animals tortured on TV all the time.
Well, that doesn't mean
stories.
Vegan, you could just eat humane raised animals. I'm for the record, I'm not a vegan, but I get all of my meat from the farmer's market.
Right.
It's all humane raised. I know the farmers, the animals aren't abused. Because I totally agree that it's not right to be cruel to animals. My sister's in veterinary school, and she sent me texts, of some chicken wholesale, commercial chicken farms. It's hard to watch. It really breaks your heart.
Yeah, especially when you see how they treat the pigs, and when they're inside the facility. I mean, the mass production of them, they bash the little baby, they throw them on the ground, they stomp on them, to cause their death. And it's almost like the workers enjoy that process. It's like they're sort of a psychopath or have a psychopathic mindset that, okay, well, I could take out my anger on this little baby pig or this pig since I have to kill it anyway. And if you think about all of that fear and trauma that it goes through, that is also to a certain extent I believe, in my opinion, translated into us when we ingest that blood, ingest that all that went into that the tissues of that animal during that process.
So Torre, I'm currently doing my master's in nutrition. I'm an engineer doing his master's in nutrition, kind of interesting, right? But one thing I do very frequently is probably about once a month I'm giving a nutrition seminar somewhere, at a chiropractic clinic, at a gym, and things like that. And pretty much every single time they request me to do a seminar on vegan diets. And like I said, veganism is becoming this huge movement. If you go on Instagram, every second hashtag is vegan, vegan, vegan. You go to the grocery store, now food companies are putting on their labels vegan. Why do you think this is? Why do you think veganism has become so popular the last couple of years?
So what started this or accelerated this momentum, I think, was that documentary, What the Health. And the only reason it was able to do that is if you look at the way social media is pushed, it's very fast. If you think about Instagram is a scrolling mechanism, and all you do is you scroll to find something that catches your attention, you like it, you move on. You don't necessarily read it. Some people will read, some people won't. But What the Health had a good method to their madness in delivering their message. They delivered it in a way that got your attention, gave you a little bit of information, moved on. And so all of it it motivated people, and it scared some people into more about themselves. If you think about it, What the Health? Health is a selfish aspect when it comes to change, because especially when it comes to the vegan lifestyle. If I tell you that your health will get better and you can live longer, you have better longevity, you won't have, your chances of heart disease goes down, and this and that, the other. On a personal level, you're like, man, I think I want that for my life, because I'd rather be here for a longer time and get to do more, have a better quality of life. So versus, oh, I don't really care about that animal, what it goes through. It's just me. It's all about me. So I think they had a really great impact when it came to that, and they kicked it off. Of course, a lot of the stuff was overestimated in order to get people to be afraid of certain things, and now they moved on. So with that, then you have celebrities changing, people that want to do better for the humanity, they want to do better for the environment. All of that came together, and now you have everybody looking at it as the cool thing to do. So it's the cool thing to do, but the pro to it is some people, well, for the most part, most people feel better. They lose weight, and that was another thing. It was one of those things to help you lose weight. And, if you did a lot of juicing, raw juicing, you lost weight, you were able to fit into that bikini, this, that, and the other. So I think there's a lot of different factors. There's no really one main idea that changed it. I think just seeing more people doing it. And, people are they're not logical, because, engineering is more logical thinking. People are more emotionally driven. So if if someone they really look up to is driven to do that, it almost makes them want to do it just because they want to be like that person. They want to emulate those people.
Torre, let me ask you this, because I know Trevor has a question. While we're on this subject, do you encourage others to follow your lifestyle? Do you push others? Do the girls that you date or who you're married to, do you kind of require they also be a vegan? Tell me about that.
And I'm glad. That's a very good question, Steve, because so as of this point, I'm not one to say I'm religious or anything like that. And the reason I'm bringing that up is, some people tend to take their religion so personal that they want to force it onto someone else, saying, if you don't do this with me, or you're not of this belief, I really can't associate with you because we're different. We can't associate because we're not going to be going in the same way. Same thing. So with me, when it comes to vegan, I've always been a person that says I will just live by example. I've never been one to push it onto anybody. And I've gotten a lot of people that tend to want to be around me more, because Torre was not that type of person to push it on you. eventually what tends to happen is they continue to just look at my life and look at me and say, you know what, I'm intrigued by it more because I see how you're living and how you look, that I want to learn more about it. I've introduced people more to it by being, it's like that terminology when you say walk softly but carry a big stick. That's how I like to just keep it to myself in a sense, but I am a big advocate for it when you ask me a question about it. I will promote it, I will talk about it, but I've never been that person to push it. I don't push it onto my friends, I don't push it onto a girlfriend per se or a wife, whatever. I won't just say, hey, that's a requirement. Even though I know it is important, but I think we can learn something from each other. I think people go into relationships not seeking to understand, they just want to be understood. And I think if we go into understanding each other, we can help people grow more than just saying, hey, if you're not like me, then so be it.
Torre, are you still working as an engineer, or are you doing the bodybuilding full time now?
Full time.
Full time.
I stopped engineering about 4 years ago.
So are you taking on like athletes to coach and things like that?
Yes. I actually, Trevor, did that on the side when I was engineering because I loved it so much, because I enjoyed just helping people get results. And it was just not even for competing, just losing weight, building muscle. It was something I enjoyed so much that I started to train and put people into competitions. And they were doing so well that gyms were asking or requesting if I could do that full time, but I was still engineering. And I said, I don't know. And so that was in Alabama, Trevor. And so I got to a point in my engineering that I hated going to work, man. I would get up like, oh, dang. I just did not want to be there. And it was just not, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit that when I started engineering, I did something on the side to sort of take me out of that, because it wasn't engineering. It was the corporate atmosphere of having someone controlling your every move. And if you wanted to go do something, you had to ask, that only have 2 weeks vacation. I was in a plant, worked in the automotive industry. So think about, I'm in a place where there's no windows. And so anytime I got to go outside is because I had to visit a supplier. And I would go outside to go visit the supplier, see the sun, Trevor, and I was like, oh, I want to be able to see the sun every day. Like, just enjoy it how I want to enjoy it, not because I'm traveling to go see a supplier. And that motivated me to, okay, I need to find an out for myself, something that I love to do. Because, of course, everybody not everybody, most people who start that entrepreneurial style, they kind of go network marketing. It always gives you that multi-level marketing. Hey, you do this, be your own boss, you could become super millionaire. And then you got one person who's a millionaire and the rest of them are still struggling to get to that point. I did that for a little while, but it wasn't me because it wasn't something I felt good about. So I stepped out and did my own thing here.
So Torre, talk to us a little bit as a diet coach. What are some of the mistakes you commonly see people make when they try to start a vegan diet?
Not eating enough. It was one of the most common mistakes, because I think people feel like they need to eat based on what they used to eat. They want to kind of imitate what they were used to eating. And that's fine, because there's a transition period. I think sometimes people like to eat things that are familiar. So if you're used to eating chicken and this and that, the other, you want to eat something that's very similar to it as far as taste and texture and feel. And those are people that are very picky when it comes to changing over. But then there are those that eat a lot more fruits and salads. They changed from high-dense foods to low-calorie foods because they feel like, okay, as a vegan, I'm supposed to eat a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables, and a lot of fruit. But what happens there is the calories don't match up because it's not enough. It's a lot of volume, but then the calories aren't there. So when they're saying they're doing that, they're juicing, they still feel they don't have enough energy. We have to then look at, okay, how much calories are you getting in? What's your activity? What is your activity when you're not training? Like, what are the things you do? What is your job? A lot of times people don't consider those aspects of their life, and so they don't eat enough. And then there are those who overeat. They just go out to the restaurants and eat whatever is available. They get all the fried vegan foods, all the pastries, because I'm gonna lie to you, man. Those pastries and those fried vegan foods are amazing. So they're doing that a lot. So those are typically what I see and a lot of times we complicate it because the mind will automatically complicate something when it's different. You know, you've been doing something for 30 years and then you say, oh, okay, I'm about to go vegan. Where do I start? And nowadays, there's so much more information to help someone make that transition that it's almost kind of, you can be a kid and look on the internet and find different recipes that fit or suit the requirement that you're looking for. Now, back in the day, I mean, 20 years ago, I would eat stuff. People say, oh, I made this cupcake. And, you know, you take a bite of it, you're like, that was pretty good. And then they're like, do you want another one? No, I'm good. Thank you. That's all I needed. But now everything's changed. A lot has changed.
So tell us.
Go ahead.
So Torre, tell us today, what did you eat? Give us an example of a typical day for you.
So today, typical for me, Steve, is not really typical because I switch it up. So I may start the day out with, say, a tofu scramble. Tofu scramble is basically tofu that's scrambled. You have turmeric added to it, seasoning, and it kind of resembles scrambled eggs. That's why they call it tofu scramble. I may have that with a bagel. And my bagel, just making sure that my bagel doesn't have any butter. It's not made with any, I think, milk or eggs, which sometimes can happen. That, and then I'll have some type of green. Sometimes I usually have fruit. Well, let me start again. I usually have fruit first. I end up having fruit like a banana, I have an apple, or I have a pear, or I have blueberries, or I have strawberries. I like to get fruit in first after I've drank about 16 ounces of water. But or my breakfast to start out with oatmeal, where I'll put peanut butter in it. I'll put raisins in it. I'll put cacao in it with some almonds or granola. And usually I have toast with that. So if you think about it, that's a lot of carbs, very minimal protein. But then my next meal of the day might be, one of my favorite things was to have, I love peanut butter and I love jam. So I put that between 2 slices of bread, a party in my mouth. I'll have that. I'll do some almond milk. And now, because I'm kind of still in that prep phase, kind of getting ready for the next show, I kind of keep my protein up just because of where he had me, because I know I'm going to probably utilize his services again. I will do more of a shake that I like, that's either I put it together, meaning I created like a peanut butter, hemp seeds with some greens and some fruit, blend it all together with some almond milk, and I make a shake that way. Or I have a specific shake that I get from a company that's really green. I mean, when I say really green, you put it with water, most people will be like, oh, it's disgusting because it's so green. It's almost like dirt, but to me it's very good. And I'll do that one as well because it's about 23 grams of protein.
What company is that? You can feel free to list brands and stuff.
Balanced Greens. Balanced Greens Superfoods.
I've never heard of it. We probably don't have it.
It's not a big company on the market, but I like that because it's more performance driven. And I mean, I say it tastes like dirt, but to some people it might taste like dirt, but to others it might taste great.
You're here September 15th, right?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be there September 15th.
I just formulated 100% organic fermented vegan protein powder, so I'll hook you up with a bottle of that.
Dude, I am down.
I promise it doesn't taste like grass clippings. That's the problem, man, is like when you take all these individual vegan proteins, so ours is pea, spirulina, hemp, quinoa, brown rice, and chia. Right. You take all of those and you mix them together and you have it unflavored, it literally tastes like dirt.
Yes.
Like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, it literally tastes like you took a hunk of soil. Tor, I got 3 listener questions for you I really want to cover. So the first one, it basically asks about soy. So this is the question. I'm just going to read it out. Question for Tor. When he was increasing his protein to meet his macros when he was getting ready for the IFBB Pro Show, what foods did he add or increase to meet that demand? And if it was added soy like tofu, Was he ever worried he was consuming too much? So just building on that question, we got about 4 or 5 other listener DMs where they saw you're eating a lot of soy and they want to know, what are your thoughts about soy being an estrogenic, being a man?
This question never, ever goes away, but I get it often because, so travel back to when I was raised, my mom, soy was is one of the main properties of foods, of the food that I consume. So I had been eating soy since I was born. And fast forward to really going head on into vegan, I increased tofu because it was my only source it was actually a simple source to actually put together. And then when I started to get ready for competition, I just increased it. Yes, I increased, so I never really was concerned. I actually never heard about the whole high estrogen production, what have you. But when I did start to research it, I found that it's really not the estrogen, it's phytoestrogen. And then a lot of doctors did a lot of research on it, like Dr. Cusimano and Dr. McMacken did different research, database driven research on it to show that it's a lot of the misinformation that's put out there that soy will cause a man's testosterone production to drop and an increase in estrogen were not really true. And so I just continued to do it. I never really ever was worried about it. I just increased my protein, and tempeh, tofu, seitan, and protein powders were my go-to choices in order to do that. So no, I never even really thought about that, Trevor.
What about how genetically modified soy is? Are you only eating organic soy, or?
Yeah. I go into the more genetic, the organic soy. Now, sometimes if I go out and as you know, you go to certain places, and as Steve mentioned that, he's a cheap guy. Sometimes I can be very frugal. I can be frugal when I go out to eat somewhere, and if it's a place and it doesn't say organic, but it's amazingly good, I'm going to eat it. That's once in a while. That's not saying I'm doing that all the time. I know very often we tend to really go into organic, genetic, GMO, this, that, and the other so much that I think we're so focused on that we miss the bigger subject of, just changing the lives of these animals. So we're so focused on the smaller genetic modified this, process this, versus, okay, you have all these different ways of go vegan, but the main thing, or the common denominator in all of that different terminology is the word vegan. Vegan should just be all of us coming together just to help change the way the planet is going and the way the animals are put through this mass production process. So, but I typically, on a regular basis, Trevor, I tend to go organic.
We've got 2 more questions for you, Torre, and then I'll let Steve see if he's got any follow-up questions. So Joseph asks, who is your favorite male athlete in South Florida?
My favorite male athlete, South Florida. I would say, I'm going to throw it back at him, Joseph Diaz.
Oh, Joseph Diaz 10. Okay. Well, you just got a shout out on the podcast. We got about 5 or 10 listener DMs on vitamin B12.
Yes.
So, I even actually did a YouTube video about, vitamin B12 supplements for vegans. What are your thoughts on this? Do you use a vitamin B12 supplement? Do you take vitamin B12 injections? Give us your thoughts.
So, this one comes up as well. The interesting part about the vitamin B12 and how it has taken over or dominated the topics of discussion when it comes to being vegan is that it didn't used to be there. So I don't know if all of a sudden there has been a rash of people that showed vitamin B12 deficiencies and they had these symptoms, but I had never actually heard about it until within the past 2-3 years about B12 being a big issue. But I realized this also, that B12 is not just vegan. It's not a vegan issue. It's more of an issue of how we as humans consume our food nowadays. We don't really pull things from the ground. So we don't get B12 from the ground like the animals get their B12. You know, we live in such a more clean environment. But I also, from some research, saw that a lot of anecdotal data given that our digestive system has changed a lot. And when our digestion is affected by the different antibiotics that we take, it causes a lot of the nutrients that we need we aren't absorbing. And so B12 happens to be one of those. So I know a lot of our digestion has to play a part in us not getting B12. But as far as I was never into taking those things, I think what helped me say, you know what, just for the heck of it, I'm going to start taking it is a lot of doctors, a lot of vegan doctors really push that everyone needs to take B12, not just vegans. And so I've only just recently started taking it, and I take it once in a while. And I take it either by pill form or the drops. And that's the only way, basically the way I take it.
I'll talk a little bit about B12 and let's see you finish up the show. So there's actually no vegan source of vitamin B12. It's only found in animal products. The problem with vitamin B12 is that it needs to be bound to something called intrinsic factor in your stomach to actually pass through your intestines, and then in your intestines it's released from intrinsic factor and then goes into your bloodstream and is absorbed. The problem is, like you said, a lot of humans, and this is due to just poor digestion, poor microbiome, things like that, aren't producing enough intrinsic factor. So the fact isn't that they're not eating enough B12, it's that the B12 isn't being absorbed.
Correct.
So the best way to use a B12 supplement would be a B12 spray, because it absorbs sublingually through your saliva glands, or a B12 injection because it bypasses the digestive system. So yeah, basically the best thing is a B12 injection. If you don't want to do that, you'd probably want like a B12 spray.
So I have the spray. I actually have a couple different ways. There's a spray, and then there's an atomizer that I have as well, where you inhale it and it atomizes in your system. So I've been playing around with those. Be honest with you, I actually did a drip where intravenously they put it through your veins. And Trevor, even no matter when I've attempted these different forms of different ways to get in B12, I tell you the one thing that has changed: nothing. My energy didn't change. I've always had energy, and so to me, I have a more of a conspiracy mindset. That's what people like to tell me, where I tend to go off on the deep end on a radical thought process that we're often given placebos just because it's a way to manipulate or control us in a certain sense. So yeah, I know, but it's kind of, that's how I kind of looked at it, because I've done the sprays, I've done the shots, I've done the intravenous. Have I seen a change in my energy level, or have I seen any difference that the symptoms point out? No. I even said the same thing when I took creatine I did creatine for about a month just to kind of see. Nah, it wasn't. I just didn't like that whole aspect of putting it in my system, and the differences that I saw were sub-level or nothing at all. But that's me, and so I tend to be a different thinker when it comes to certain things. And that's just how I kind of continue on. So a lot of times I don't typically get into those conversations with people, because my thought process is sometimes to the left of the normal thought process.
Well, I'll say this, both of you are 100% right on this, because if you know anyone who has Crohn's disease, guess what? They have a very hard time, getting proper minerals and vitamins in their body, and they're all deficient. Right. And they still eat plenty of meat. They've eaten meat for years. They're still deficient. So, and in the United States, we consume more dairy than any other country, yet we have the highest osteoporosis. Go figure. Right. We're not getting our calcium. Go figure. So it has a lot to do with our gut health. That's the main issue here.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have a question for you, Torre. What's a good vegan dish that you can give us that we can go tomorrow and go to a grocery store and get and make that we'll really enjoy as weightlifters? Can you give us something?
Yeah. You can just go to the store and make it. Oh, there's so many. Okay. So I actually have an ebook that's available on my website called Nourish, and from that ebook, every dish that's on there is dishes that I make with a twist to make them more palatable to people, because I tend to be very simple and easy to make food. Well, I can eat if I want to the same thing every day, and I'm not. It's not very hard to please. I'm not very hard to please when it comes to eating food, but I love to eat food. So as far as a good, this one I like very much, and it's very simple. It's a chickpea mock tuna type of dish that all you need are garbanzo beans. You can get them from the can, organic, of course. You can get them bulk, soak them, and you're gonna basically make it into sort of that's the recipe that I have, that you can make into a sort of a tuna chickpea. It's amazing with just some toasted bread. Good to go, Steve. I'm gonna have to send you that recipe, man.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Tell us more about your website, your Instagram, and how people can get in touch with you if they want to. Do you do diet coaching just for vegans, or do you do diet coaching for everybody?
For everybody, because my coaching style is more on the flexible style, where I want people to not be restricted to what they can eat, and also being like Trevor is going in to get his nutrition. I'm sorry, not a certification. You get nutrition what now?
I'm doing my master's.
Yeah, doing his master's in nutrition. So when it comes from Trevor, in a sense, he has the more say to tell people, okay, what to eat. When it comes from someone like myself without that type of degree, I don't like, or even, I know a lot of people do it, but I'm not going to be the one of those people to tell people, hey, you need to eat this, eat that, and this and that, because I know that everybody is different, so it's unique. So my coaching style is more macro driven or calorie driven, to where the person
technically legal.
What'd you say?
It's actually technically legal.
Exactly.
I'm surprised more prep coaches aren't being sued, because it's actually legal for you to give someone a meal plan if you're not a registered dietitian.
Exactly. And I find it hard that people say, hey, I want you to tell me exactly what to eat. I'm like, that's not, I'm not going to do that. Because that's illegal, because you could get in trouble if you call that person to go into some type of condition or where they're not supposed to be eating certain foods. So, but yeah, I work with everybody. I've actually had a lot of people, Steve, tell me, I want to go vegan, because, just looking at you, it makes me think about it even more. And it's not because I pushed them into it. It's because I guess they see that I'm not doing that. So it's almost like it backs them in, because they feel like, well, you look like this, but you're 102 years old. So I don't get it.
So Torre, you're a really cool guy. I mean, you're super lighthearted. You're having a blast. I mean, I love your message. Where can our listeners find out more about you? What's your Instagram? What's your Facebook? What's your website? How can they get a hold of you?
So my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter are all the same, Torre Washington. Instagram is Torre.Washington. Facebook is Torre Washington. Twitter is official Torre Washington, and YouTube is Torre Washington official. My main social media outlet right now at the moment is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. YouTube, I put up videos very sporadically, but I'm working on getting it more. I also have my website, torrewashington.com, where I tend to put out more newsletters. I have apparel, which is affiliated with Rethink Protein. I have 2 ebooks available, one for bodybuilding foundational training. Basically, for someone, mainly the customers that come to my ebooks are either transitioning to go vegan, or they're vegan and never have worked out before. And they're looking to learn how to work out. And so if I'm not there in front of you helping with your biomechanics, maybe my videos can help you lift properly and efficiently so that you can build a foundation to get you to that next level.
Cool, man. Guys, give him a follow, give him a like. He's going to be in Winnipeg in 2 weeks, so me and him are going to get some workouts in. So,
dude, I'm looking forward to doing more. Like when I come out there, we can get to know each other more, because I'll be honest with you guys, I love to know people, truly know people, because I know we tend to be in this world where we say, hey, I know him. but we don't really know him. You know what I mean?
Well, it's gonna be crazy. All of our Instagram followers will be like, hey, they actually did link up. They actually did get a workout in. But Torre, I love your message, man. I can just tell hanging out with you, you're gonna be a super cool guy. Like you're just lighthearted. You're having a blast. You don't take life too seriously, and that's what it's all about. You know,
Right.
I see people all the time. You know, they're doing this bodybuilding thing, and they're miserable because it's all about what I can't. You know,
Right.
I can't eat this. I can't eat this. I have to do this. I have to do this. No, you should view it as it's a privilege to go to the gym. It's a privilege
Yes.
to be able to, you know, pick what foods I want to eat. It's a privilege to say, hey, I don't want to eat that food. I'm going to eat this food instead. That's a choice.
Yes.
Right? So, Torre, we love your message, man. Guys, give him a follow. For your host, Trevor Kouritzin, for my co-host, Steve Smee, and for our special guest, vegan IFBB pro, Torre Washington, this has been another episode of Evolutionary Radio. Live your life. Look good doing it. Thanks for listening.
Yes, sir.